Jumping into the number 5 spot of the best mechanical keyboards of 2024 is the Akko 5075B+, coming in at a price tag of $99.99. If you want to check out any of the 5 keyboards in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But let's jump into the Akko 5075B+. Now, this is a 75% form factor that has a 2-piece plastic case design that does have quite a bit of flex, but also has bright and well diffused RGB accents on the sides. There's dongle storage on the rear and a knob with tactile bumps. This is also gasket mounted, and for dampening there is silicone in the case, a switch dampening pad, as well as more silicone between the plate and the PCB. This is very nice. The dampening makes the sound high quality, and overall, I like the way it sounds very Akko, but when picking up the case, it doesn't feel super expensive, and that's really the only reason that it's in the number 5 spot. The plastics do feel cheaper, but the overall product, the typing experience, and the sound of it is great, so it's kind of hard to knock that, but also, it is what it is. Now, switches are a big reason that this keyboard made it onto the list. These use Akko's own switches, and you have a choice between Akko's V3 Cream Yellow Pros, which are linears, V3 Cream Blue Pro switches, which are tactiles, and the V3 Silver Pros, which is what I have and probably my favorite for this keyboard. The silvers have a fantastic bottom out feel that's really quite nice for both gaming and typing. They are a lighter linear switch that's probably the most suited for gaming of the Akko lineup, or definitely in that category of a great gaming switch. They are smooth, and really, I don't think anyone will be unhappy with these switch options. But if you do end up wanting to change your switches out, this is fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches. Now, as for keycaps, this is classic Akko. They use their ASA profile keycaps here. They are double shot PBT. For the price, these are great keycaps. They have nice printing, great thickness, and a slightly grippy texture. Overall, a really nice set of keycaps for this price point. However, if you've ever had an Akko keyboard before, this is nothing new. So this might not even make it onto your choice because, well, Akko really hasn't updated these keycaps or changed anything really over the last couple of years, which isn't a bad thing. This is a fantastic option. But if you want something new and you already have Akko's ASA profile keycaps, you might not be as attracted to this option. Now, let's talk stabilizers. These are very well tuned, as well as being lubed from the factory with only a slight tick on the backspace specifically. Overall, very good. I really like Akko's purple stabilizers. These are great, but don't take my word for it. Take a listen to the sound test. And that is how it sounds. Also stick around to the end of the video for a back-to-back sound test of all the keyboards. Now, for connectivity, this is wired with a USB Type-C or wireless with Bluetooth 5.0, or wireless for gaming with a 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle. So you have pretty much every option there. And the cherry on top of all that is this has south-facing LEDs. So overall, a great keyboard to mod, with really the only con being that the case does feel a little bit cheap and it's a little bit flexible. Although that might actually be better for the feeling of the keyboard on desk. Who knows? I think it may add to it. Now, lastly, the RGB here is great. It's nice and bright and vibrant. There's tons of modes. There's static colors. It's perky lighting. It's exactly what you'd expect here. But with that, let's move on to the number 4 spot, and that is the Royal Axe R100, coming in at a price tag of $99.99. You get a lot for your money here. Now, this switches it up to a 95% form factor, which is fantastic if you want basically all of the keys you're gonna need, but you still want a more compact design so that you have more desk space, maybe for like a larger mouse pad or just other things on your desk. However, you can also get this exact same keyboard in different form factors. You can get this in a full size, TKL, and even a 65%, although I do think the 95% is just kind of the coolest one. Now, for the build, the case is a single plastic shell with a top bump on the rear to act as a riser that also has integrated dongle storage, which is super nice to access the dongle with the keyboard sitting on your desk without visually like messing up the design. So you literally just have the keyboard on, pull it out, Very, very good. It then has swooping designs on the sides as well as glossy accents. And finally, there is a switch for Mac versus Windows, as well as a gold knob slash switch thing for toggling between different connection modes, which is very, very satisfying to click. That'll be in the sound test coming up. Overall, it's unique and it looks custom, definitely more so than the Akko. Really, the only con I could see with the build, as it feels solid, is because of the design for the bump out. This is consistently in a slightly raised up angle. So if you do prefer a flatter keyboard, there's no adjustability there. And really, that's the only con with the build. Now, as for dampening, there's some silicone between the plate and the PCB. Now, colorways here are actually very cool. You saw I got that kind of like brown gold one, which I think looks sick, but there's others. Whale blue, night crimson, and starry cyan. The one that I got was the lava brown. So there's definitely a lot for, I would say, most people's preferences. If you definitely like a louder keyboard that's very, very cool and custom looking, this one definitely delivers. Switches here use the Gateron G Pro 3.0 yellow switches. They are pre-lubed with an actuation force of 50 grams, so they are a bit heavier than your traditional red switch, but not by a crazy amount. They have some scratchiness, but overall they are really, really nice feeling. Overall, I'm happy with the switches. I think they match the keyboard pretty well, but if you want to get into modifying it, absolutely can, because this is fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches. Now for keycaps. The keycaps, I believe, are AEK profile. They have great printing and a really nice thickness, as well as a matte finish, kind of grippy texture. Overall, very satisfying for typing. Now, let's talk stabilizers. The stabs are heavily lubed, but not overdone, and they're tight in the plate, and honestly, they're tuned perfectly from the factory with no ticks or rattles. This has a slightly muted, creamy sound that I really, really enjoyed, but don't take my word for it, take a listen to the sound test. And that is how it sounds. Now, as for connectivity, you can obviously use this with a USB Type-C cable in its wired format, or wirelessly with Bluetooth 5.0 or a 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle for gaming to get that high polling rate. As for RGBs, this does have north-facing LEDs, but the RGB is very bright and vibrant, has tons of modes, static colors are great, especially that orange, just overall very attractive. So if you did want to do some sort of shine-through keycap, this is definitely a great option for that. But with that, let's move on to the number 3 spot. And this is the Epomaker Brick 87, coming in at a price tag of $109.99. This is a very special keyboard. Obviously, by the name, it is brick, so Legos. Although not licensed, I don't think. Now, this is a TKL form factor and is overall a super cool, quirky keyboard. Especially if you are a Lego lover like me, you can literally build off of your keyboard. Like literally build off of it. The case is a 2-piece plastic shell, and there's a switch on the right side to switch connection modes, and then one on the left to turn it on and off. Now, one of the most interesting things is that this has 2 like roller scroll wheels on the bottom front chin of the keyboard. It's a very interesting place to put it. It's actually very cool. One of them is for volume control and the other one is for RGB brightness. Very cool integration, actually works pretty well. However, occasionally one of them gets a little bit stuck, so you kind of have to like push it a little bit harder, but you know, it's cool that it's there. I'd rather have it than not have it. Then on top of that, you get that awesome, glorious Lego bar, which you can attach genuine Legos to it, and I did. Lego figures fit snugly, and you can remove them if you want to totally customize it, so very, very cool. Now, as for dampening, this has a ton of EVA foam in the case, a bunch of switch pads, a layer of cotton for more dampening between the plate and the PCB, and overall, I think they did a great job. I love the sound profile of this keyboard. It sounds like a custom, it sounds expensive, and it looks sweet. Not only just because of the Lego bar, but definitely some points up for that. For colorways, this actually comes in quite a few. You can get this in a clear smoky black, a gray green, a gray pink, and then a white purple. Now for switches, this uses Epomaker's own switches, and I'm a fan of them. You have a choice between the Wisteria, Flamingos, and Peace Lily. These are all linears. Or you can get Gateron Pro Yellows. Now, of all those options, I would definitely pick Epomaker's over the Pro Yellows, but I guess if you're a gamer, then yeah, you can get the yellows. I got the Flamingos because I actually love the Flamingo flamingos. I think it is an excellent switch for the price. However, there's no stock option for tactiles. So if you do want tactiles, you're gonna have to modify it afterwards. However, that's not a problem because obviously this is fully compatible with 3 and 5 pin switches. Now, all of these switches are factory lube and they did a great job here. It feels and sounds really good. The flamingos are definitely in an enthusiast grade switch. That's what I would call an enthusiast grade switch. Not like crazy high, but definitely in that realm. This is not like a budget switch. Now, keycaps here, they are PBT with a very smooth texture and a matte finish. These again have a great thickness, though the printing is a little inconsistent in terms of like boldness. However, if you're not a stickler for that, the thickness on this does create a nice sound profile. The stabilizers here are well tuned and very well lubed. There is a very slight tick on the spacebar, but that is slight. But overall, very well done. Don't take my word for it though, take a listen to the sound test. And that is how it sounds. But with that, let's talk connectivity. You can use this wired with a USB Type-C, wirelessly with Bluetooth 5.0, or a 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle. As for battery size, this has a 3000 milliamp hour battery. The RGB here is bright and well diffused. There's tons of modes, static colors. It's really got everything you'd want, including south-facing LEDs, which is not something I expected. But with that, let's move on to the number 2 spot, which is the Royal KLUDGE M75, coming in at a price tag of $119.99. This is a 75% form factor, has a hefty 2-piece plastic case with a metal knob, an extra USB-C when in wired mode, and a small OLED screen in the bottom right. The knob has nice tactile bumps and great functionality. When you press the knob, you can control the connectivity of the keyboard through the screen. The screen also shows battery, volume, as well as whether you're using Windows or Mac. Now, for dampening. This is gasket mounted with foam between the polycarbonate plate and the PCB, a silicone switch dampening pad, and then a silicone mold in the case. Overall, very good. I like the sound profile, which obviously sound test coming up. Now, let's talk colorways, and there's a few things that we need to talk about with that. There is a purple, which is the one that I have, which is the first release of this keyboard. Then there is a light gray, dark gray, or a green colorway. There are some notable updates to the other colorways, such as south-facing LEDs, and different switch and keycap options. Overall, it seems like they made better updates to the keyboard to make it even better for the price point, so I feel very confident recommending this keyboard even with the updated variation, especially if you want south-facing LEDs, a great thing to get. Now for switch options here, you have a choice between browns, which are obviously tactile, reds, or speed silvers, and that is for the purple colorway. For the other colorways, we have a choice between pale green switches, which are tactile, or viridian switches, which are linear. The speed silvers, which I have, are factory lubed. The switches here definitely have some scratchiness, but overall not that scratchy, and is a nice progressive feeling spring with a good weight, especially for gaming. As far as hot swappability, this is fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches. Keycaps here are double shot PBT, non-shine through keycaps with side printing. The stabilizers here are very nicely tuned with no ticks or rattles. Overall, really impressed here. But don't take my word for it, take a listen to the sound test. For connectivity, you can use this wired with a USB Type-C or wireless with Bluetooth or a 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle. And as for the battery size, this is nicely sized at a 3750 milliamp hour battery. Now for RGB, because this uses a polycarbonate plate, it reflects the RGB quite nicely, making it very bright and vibrant. This also has tons of modes and colors and per key lighting. And again, to reiterate, the purple colorway has north-facing LEDs and the other colorways have south-facing LEDs. But with that, moving on to the number 1 spot, this is the Yunzii AL71, coming in at a price tag of $99.99. This is the freaking steal of the century, an unbelievable keyboard, extraordinarily worthy of the number 1 spot. This uses a 68% form factor, and for the build, there's a reason why this is in the number 1 spot. This has a 2-piece solid aluminum shell. It is very heavy, it's solid, it's gasket mounted, and it's got a decorative silver moon logo on the front right side, which I think looks great and really makes this feel more like a custom keyboard, which this really is. This is a custom keyboard. It also has side diffused RGB accents, which are actually pretty dang bright and look great, as well as a switch to toggle between Windows and Mac and another switch to change your connectivity modes. All the selections have nice tactile bumps, and everything really on this keyboard just feels extremely premium and it sounds amazing. As for dampening, this also has a ton. Switch pads, case dampening, foam between the plate and the PCB. This has a lot of dampening, and because of that, it sounds nicely. Obviously, you can take out some of that if you want to change up the sound profile, which actually wouldn't be too hard because, well, it's an aluminum case, so it's a little bit easier to get into. For colorways, you actually have quite a few options, which is kind of unexpected because the aluminumness, kind of you would expect that higher price point, but it's in a lower price point, not as many color options, but yeah, it does well. You have a choice between black, blue, purple, green, pink, red, and silver. Now, for switch options here, you have 2 options. You have the crystal white switches, which is a lighter linear switch. I actually really liked them. Or you have a silent switch. If you're really into feel, the silent switches aren't gonna be as great as they do have like a rubber stopper that does kind of soften the bottom out. So it's not gonna feel as nice, but it sounds like basically no sound. Still much better than a membrane keyboard, but yeah, just take that into account. The crystals are very, very smooth and have a great sound to them. So overall, I really enjoy this. However, since there's not a lot of switch options, if you do want to end up customizing this yourself and putting your own switches in there, it's fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches. Now let's talk keycaps. These are PBT with a cherry profile, and that is something I really, really enjoy. I like cherry. It makes it feel more like a custom keyboard, which it is. I keep saying like a custom keyboard. This is a custom keyboard, let's be real. They have a slight texture to them, they're matte finish, and they have a good thickness. The stabs here are greased from the factory and are tuned very well, especially the spacebar, guys. I can't overdo that. You're gonna hear in the sound test. Really, really good job. The only one with a slight issue is the backspace and has a slight tick, but if you're not an enthusiast, you may not even notice. It's like that slight. Overall, I absolutely love the sound and feel of this board, and for the price, you literally can't beat it, guys. There's a reason it's in the #1 spot. But don't take my word for it, take a listen to the sound test. And that is how it sounds. For connectivity, you can use this wired with a USB Type-C or wireless with a Bluetooth 5.0 or 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle for gaming. And on top of all of that, you're gonna think, okay, well, the wireless connectivity, they're gonna give you a small battery size. No, it's the biggest battery on the list. This uses a 4600 milliamp hour battery. Pretty freaking wild. For RGB, it's good here. It's bright, it's nice and vibrant, it's per key lighting. It's pretty much exactly what you'd expect. And again, having those side RGB lights really adds a nice touch to it. And lastly, obviously, because this has cherry profile keycaps, this uses south-facing LEDs. What doesn't this keyboard have for this ridiculously good price tag? Again, if you want to check out any of the 5 keyboards in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. The AL71 absolutely blew me away. That is an unbelievable price for that keyboard. I really hope they don't increase the price because it seems too good to be true, but it is very good, and it is true at the time of filming. But yeah, this is a consumer tech review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.